Hello everyone, back tuning into today's first video. We're going to have a look at the late winter period for this video. So we've done the winter updates, of course. We finished with those at the end of November. Next week, next Sunday, which I think is the day after Boxing Day, the 27th, on that day we're going to do the first spring update, so the first update that covers the full spring period. This one, I just wanted to have a look at that period between sort of late winter and early spring, so January, February, March, possibly towards April as well, because there's always been a suggestion with this winter that we could have a backloaded winter where things could get colder and more blocked later on. Of course, starting off on an exceptionally mild note, we're going to have the mildest December on record for England and Wales at the very least. So there's always been, and that's a little bit surprising, I wasn't expecting it to be as warm as that in December, I've got to admit, but there has always been a suggestion that the first part of the winter probably starts off very mild, and then we go to something colder and more blocked perhaps later on in the winter, and that possibly going into the start of the spring. So I just want to have a quick look at that period, late winter, February into March, late winter, early spring, and see what the models are showing. So we're going to do that for this update. We're not going to look at all the models that we look at when we do the regular long range update. We're only going to have a look at around 5 or 6 of them for this one, so keep it a bit shorter. But we'll have a look at that in a second. Before I get on with that, just to say about the ads at Gas Office. There's links to articles on all the pages at Gas Office, so have a browse your wishes and click through the links if there's any articles that you're interested in. And thanks very much for doing that. There's video ads on most of the pages. They open up in content. When you watch them, they'll close back up again, and that's helping to pay for the website. So thanks very much to everybody who's been getting involved and helping to support Gabs Webavins.com. It's been a fantastic year of growth for the website. It's all down to you guys doing all of the things that you can to help to support the website. So thanks very much. So we're going to start off with the JMA. Now these are anomaly charts broken down to monthly periods. So we start off with January, we go through to February, and then we go through into March as well. What I want to start off with is a 500 millibar height anomaly for January, and what the model is seeing here in January, and we're right up in the very far top right hand corner of the chart as you're looking at it up there. So what we're seeing in January is that model is predicting a vast area of above average heights down to the west and the southwest of the country. You can't see the northern hemisphere view, but the jet stream is probably coming through something like that. So you would expect a fairly unsettled and probably very mild or fairly mild month with that one. So this is how the temperature anomalies are looking with the JMA, coming out a bit milder than average across most parts of the country. Not severely mild, not as mild as it has been through December, but on the plus side of average is the temperature anomaly for January. The rainfall anomaly looks like this one, and it's a bit wetter than average in the north and west, a bit drier than average in the south and east. So again, very indicative of a westerly Atlantic dominated January. And the wind areas, you probably can't quite make these out, but generally it's westerlies coming in here across Europe into through British Isles into Europe from the Atlantic Ocean. So a westerly mild Atlantic driven month being signalled from the JMA for January. We go through to February, and signs of a change here in February because we get ridging building through the country as this trough of low pressure is down to the southwest. So I've got some above average heights there through the UK and into central parts of Europe as well. That could be quite a dry month, and exactly where that high pressure is sitting is critical for the temperatures. So the rainfall anomaly is coming out a bit below average, generally a bit drier than average in February across the country. The temperature anomaly is also coming out, it's coming out a bit above average again, actually. So a fairly mild and dryish month being signalled by the JMA for February. And the wind arrows are looking like this with, remember it's under anticyclonic conditions, but the wind arrows are generally coming from southerly, southwesterly type direction. So that's the reason the temperatures are on the mild side. Now, this is a change on what the JMA was showing last month. For last month, the JMA wanted to build extensive area of northern blocking over Poland, probably hint at a colder month. It's not doing that for this update. It actually wants to keep those areas of above average height for high pressure just centred over the UK and central parts of Europe. So the JMA has backed away from the potential of a colder late winter period. And then we go through into March, and still really it's anticyclonic conditions here across the west of Europe and in central parts of Europe as well, with a trough of low pressure in the Atlantic. The flow probably doing something like that. So again, you would expect another milder month coming up in March, and that is indeed what the temperatures are showing, a milder than average month in March. So that's January, February and March all coming out mild with the Japanese model. However, it is slightly wetter as we go through into March. So it's a more unsettled month. Probably because we're bringing the jet stream more through the country, actually. Remember, although the heights are fairly high across central parts of Europe over here, and also down to the south, because of the way things are aligning themselves with trough of low pressure in the Atlantic, the flow's probably doing something like that. So it is a more unsettled month, albeit a mild one, in March. And the wind arrows, again, you probably can't make them out, but it's westerlies, southwesterlies dominating. So again, that's a reason a milder than average month is being anticipated. This is the NASA model, the experimental model from NASA. I do like to have a quick look at this one. These are the 500 millibar height anomalies for January, February, March. So that 3 monthly period, sort of the first quarter, if you like, of 2016. And what you see is above average heights to the south of Greenland and some around Newfoundland. And then possibly hinting at a trough of low pressure. I have to go over to this side of the chart there, but possibly hinting at a trough of low pressure over Scandinavia. So this could be colder actually as we're going through into the late winter period. The jet stream and the flow could be going something a bit like that. Particularly cold, I would think, for Scandinavia and eastern parts of Europe. But we could tap into that at times. What we really want to do to really tap into it is to send these areas of above average heights more up towards here. So we centre them over Greenland. If we did that, then we really would be able to start to tap into that trough of cold air that's over Scandinavia. Nevertheless, this is better than the JMA is indicating, and we could get some colder conditions there for the late winter and early spring period. However, the model is still seeing a milder than average period coming up through that late winter, and interestingly Scandinavia and eastern parts of Europe, where I thought we'd probably be digging some colder air in via that trough. It is a fairly weak trough, to be honest, but I thought it probably would be enough to dig some colder air in. Actually, no, it's still coming out milder than average for that first 3 monthly quarter of the year. Having a quick look at the precipitation, that's coming out about average, really. So not a great deal going on there. Although central parts of Europe, interestingly, a bit wetter than average. So that could be indicative of some sort of trough pushing down from the north, perhaps, and maybe the jet stream even going on a slightly southerly track. But overall, it's a fairly mild and quite dry hints, I would think, again, from the experimental NASA model for the first 3 months of the year. CFS V2 next. These are the 700 millibar height anomalies for January, February, March. We find the ridge here across central parts of Europe, trough of low pressure to the north and west. The CFS, you know, been watching these updates on a regular basis. CFS has never been interested in any particularly cold weather for this winter. It's always wanted this sort of setup, which has the effect of dragging the air up like that. So the air comes from the tropical Atlantic. Been doing it for several months with this model, and you have to say that's starting off very well with this forecast for December, which is turning into an exceptionally mild tropical Atlantic driven month. So it certainly has had the signal for December nailed down. That doesn't necessarily mean as we go on through January, February, March that we keep the same pattern, but that's what the CFS V2 continues to want to do. So you won't be surprised to see it remains exceptionally mild across not just the UK but many parts of Europe, with jet stream going like that. bringing the flow going like that, bringing the air up from the Azores. Exceptionally mild. First 3 months to the year is expected, and very wet as well. Again, the reason is that low pressure just crashing in on that sort of a flow, with exceptionally mild air but very wet conditions, not just for the UK but many parts of Europe as well. So no change from CFSV2 for the first quarter of the month, January, February, March. Just continues with what we've had from November into December. Tropical Atlantic source air, exceptionally mild, very, very wet. Beijing Climate Centre for January, February, March looks like this. It's a bit different actually, this one. We have a big ridge of high pressure here around the UK, in the Atlantic, actually above average heights, and extending into Europe as well. This isn't a cold scenario. The jet stream is probably tracking to the northwards, but it is pretty dry. So the worst of the rain, if this is right, the worst of the rain for this winter is probably just about over. And actually we'll probably have fairly dry start 2016, but it would still be mild. So have a look at the temperature anomalies, and this is a change on last month when the Beijing Climate Centre was going for a cold and average winter. Now the model is going for a milder than average late winter, early spring period. I have to say, if these model updates were showing this when I did the winter forecast last month, or on the 1st of December, I would really have gone even milder with the winter forecast than I have done, because there has clearly been a very strong shift with these long-range models to go milder for the late winter period, as opposed to what they were showing last month. Precipitation is coming out a bit drier than average as well, so a very mild period being seen, and a fair amount of dry weather by the Beijing Climate Centre. Jamstec has flipped as well. You remember Jamstec was going for a cold and average winter. This is for December up to February, so we can only do it sort of December to February, March to May, June to August, and then September to November. So it's very seasonal with this model. You can't see the intervening periods such as January to March. But anyway, what the model is seeing for the winter is will be the last time updates for this winter, but it is now going for a milder than average winter for the UK. Look how mild it is across most of Eurasia, exceptionally warm, but a cold winter still being seen for many parts of America. That's quite interesting, because they've had a very mild or they are having a very mild December, having a very mild start to winter. So it's interesting that even now, after this very mild start they've had in America to the winter, the Jamstec is still going for a cold winter for them. But for us, I'll just get rid of all those lines. For us, a milder than average winter is now being forecast by Jamstec IOD. And the rainfall is coming out wetter than average, so it's seeing a warm, wet winter, really. And the way the rainfall is aligned would probably, again, bring up the air in that sort of direction. So, yeah, tropical Atlantic source there, and very wet conditions being seen by Jamstec. Finally, the UK Met. Now, you remember last month the UK Met Office was hinting at things going colder for late winter, more in way of blocking, probably via southern stratospheric warming. Look at this. The UK Met Office GLOW C5 model is still going for that. So this is the mean sea level pressure anomaly for January to March, and the above average pressure is there to the south of Greenland, trough of low pressure to the east, so it means the flow probably goes something like that, and it would imply we do get some colder or cooler conditions anyway as we go through January, February, March. If we have a look at the next one, February, March, April, very interesting. Look at that. We've got a lot of blocking being hinted at there for those red colours across Greenland, and that allows the trough to really dig in there across central parts of Europe. So it means that we could well be bringing down really cold air with that from the north and the northeast. Actually, the temperature anomalies aren't that impressive, but that chart, that pressure anomaly distribution, does look very impressive to me, and I would have thought in that scenario we would be trending increasingly cold, certainly in terms of the anomaly to average, through February into March into April as well. The temperature anomalies look like this. So January, February, March in the UK Met is actually still a bit above average, near normal to a bit above average, but the next one, February, March, April, does indicate that things could start going a bit colder there. Those green colours beginning to extend into the country, colder than average anomalies. So I think there is a progression there from the UK Met model, probably via sun and stratospheric warming, to get increasing amounts of blocking through the first 3 or 4 months of the year, and probably tap into some colder weather through, maybe particularly, and it's not that good news I would have thought, but maybe through that early and middle part of the spring. The rainfall anomaly, precipitation anomaly, January, February, March, comes out wetter than average. So it certainly is a mixed bag, and I think although the UK Met Office model is still going for this idea, probably of a sun and stratospheric warming and then colder conditions late winter, early spring via some blocking, despite that, I think the general signal from these long-range models has been to back off, actually, from that cold late winter idea that we had when we did the winter forecast at the start of the month. So it's not great news for cold snow lovers. We're starting off with an exceptionally mild start to the winter. Are we going to get this change later on? The UK Met Office still wants to hint at it anyway. So are we going to get this change late on to something colder and more blocked for late winter, early spring? Or really is the pattern for this winter set, which is just to be exceptionally mild and pretty wet at times? Well, we're going to have to wait and see how things pan out, but it is bad news what's happened here if you want a cold and snowy end to the winter, because these models have definitely shifted away from that idea. And as I said, if these models were showing this when I did the winter forecast, actually I would probably have gone even milder than I did. I did predict a milder than average winter, but not exceptionally mild. I probably, on the balance of these models, would have shifted more on the milder side of things and backed away from that cold late winter idea. So I'm a bit doubtful now about this cold late winter idea, but we'll wait and see how it goes. I'm not going to change the winter forecast. That still stands. I don't believe in sort of changing the forecast as we go along. I just like to issue a forecast, put it out there, and then we just evaluate it at the end of the season. So if I've got it wrong and we don't get this cold late winter period, well, that's just what happens, isn't it? And I'll have to come back in March and explain myself for what could have gone wrong. But we'll see how it goes now. I'm not going to abandon the winter forecast, so let's wait and see. Right, I'm going to do the latest Christmas update this evening on the Christmas updates page. That'll be at around 6, 7 o'clock, something like that. So come back for that. But that's all for now. Thanks for watching.